everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences.
Get on with it.
So today I'm taking a look at Rome in a Day. This is coming out soon for release in the UK and hopefully worldwide, I believe at the UK Games Expo, but don't quote me on that. And the idea is that this is meant to attack the filler games market for a mechanic called I Split You Choose. This is where you have a collection of things in front of you, be it cards or tiles, etc. And another player has to take some of them off you. But you get to decide which piles they pick from. So for example, if I have 5 tiles in front of me of different colours, I might decide, well, you know what, I'm going to put them in 2 piles. One over there and one there. The other player decides which pile they're going to take. So yoink, they take that one. And you're left with these. So you're left with the decision of how to split your piles in order to get what you want out of the deal and let them have something that you're not too fussed about. That's essentially what Rome in a Day is trying to do. Forget the fact it's called Rome or whatever, or I don't even know why it's even called Rome in a Day, frankly. I mean, the theme is not really the focal point of this. So the way this game works is that you have a building card to represent the different rounds of the game, and this will have a collection of buildings on it for the 4 rounds. 2 of them will come out each round. And the idea is that you have your personal screen, but you have a stack of tiles with different terrain types on it and your coat of arms. This represents your own personal stash of tiles. And the idea is that from this stash, each round, hopefully it's on the camera, you will lay down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiles in front of you and pop the first 2 buildings on like so. And then everybody can see what they've got. And then behind your screen, in secret, you have to basically decide how to split those piles. So you could do 4 of one, 1 in the other, 2 of one, 3 in the other. But of course, with 5 tiles, you can't do an even split. One group will be smaller than the other. The small group, you put a little gemstone with it, which is basically victory points at the end of the game if you can hang on to a lot of those, but you have to put it with the smallest pile. So for example, I decide I'm going to put these 3 in that pile, and I'm going to put these 2 in that pile. So once you're done, you basically reveal the screen and see what you got. So I've got these 2 here and these 3 here, and of course I would put a little gemstone, there we go, with the little one. And so the player, starting with the person to your left in the first round, represented by a nice little guide card here, decides which of the piles they're going to take. They can take the small one, the gem, or the big one. Let's say they decide to take this big one here. Okay, they take this one, I'm left with these 2. You're also doing this with the other player though. You're looking at their stuff and going, you know what, I quite fancy this lot. And the idea is that by a mix of what the opponent takes from you and what you take from the other opponent, you will eventually have 5 tiles in front of you, possibly with 2 buildings, or possibly not, maybe a gemstone or 2, you don't know, and then you build your map. And the map is just simply putting the edges together so that they connect. That's pretty much it. But what you're trying to do is build up big groups of the same color terrain and have buildings of the matching color on or adjacent to those sections. So a red building on a collection of 6 red tiles would score 6 points. And if it's adjacent to it, it would also score. Get more of those types of buildings, they'll each score. So it's essentially basically get a lot of a certain type of color together and put the right buildings with it. That's essentially how you're building. There's no other weird rules and such. And that's pretty much what you do in the game. This game has got really simplistic rules, all of which are basically in iconography form on the back of your screen, and this is perfect. I mean, you should be able to get the game literally just from reading your screen. It tells you what to do at the preparation phase, how to split, you know, what to do with your card, what to do with terms of choosing and someone else choosing, and then how to build your map. And then when you're done, you simply flip over your guide cards that you know that you've got to take from the person on your right, because it basically just alternates each round, play 4 rounds, and see who's got the most victory points. Dirt simple. Really, really dirt simple, this game, and that's definitely something you're gonna want. I cannot see why light gamers would not be able to understand this. Gateway gamers is hit and miss. I've played this with a mix of people, some of which are brand new to games and some of which who have played the odd few games. And certainly the ones who are brand new take a little bit of extra time to grasp the whole I Split You Choose thing. Because it's not so much the how does the mechanic work, it's more that it's very tricky for them to decide how to split. It's, you know, if you're brand new to games and I tell you, right, this is how you score, now decide how you're going to split these 5 tiles. Even for a gamer, that decision is not the easiest one in the world, especially when you're looking at the 2 neighbours and going, what are you likely to take and what am I likely to get from you? You try telling that to a brand new gamer, it's a little bit of a miss. So you may find that they'll struggle a little bit. Although, as I've also found out, the game does tend to end up with fairly tight scores at the end. So you'd be surprised that some of those brand gamers can still pull out a win, even when they don't necessarily realise it. But The game is just very simple. You've got a good guide card, you've got a couple of cards to signify whether you're going to do the small pile or the large pile, so it's basically simultaneous, so it's like, everybody flip. There you go, so everything's done at the same time, so nobody gets an advantage. Building the map is not particularly interesting. I mean, you're just putting groups together and you can pretty much do what you like with the tiles. There's very little restrictions, so for the most part, you should be able to build the map in whichever way you want, frankly, to get the most points-wise. And the gems can be a nice little hidden thing as well, because, you know, you don't get much for a few gems, but if you start getting a lot of gems, they're worth considerably more points, and it is possible to pull out a cool win like that. The buildings are just colors. There's no weird rules about, oh, this building has this special ability or this has this special ability. It's just a case of keeping things very streamlined and very simple, which is what Rome in a Day basically for the most part is. It's a simple, simultaneous, quick, I split you choose mechanic. The game quotes 2 to 5 players, 15 to 30 minutes. 15 minutes is pushing it. No way. No way you're doing this in 15 minutes unless people are playing at lightning speed. 30 minutes though is pretty reasonable. Doesn't take long to teach. It should not take you more than 5 minutes to get the message across, and 25 minutes should be all it takes for you to do 4 rounds. It's not that long of a game, frankly, which is good. It's meant to be a filler game. Now, Rome in a Day isn't exactly reinventing the wheel here when it comes to its gameplay. It does what it says on the box. It's I split you choose, it's quick, it's snappy, does the job. So it's not one that's suddenly, I think, going to take the world by storm, and certainly I'll bring this out every now and again as a filler game, and I'll certainly put it in the bag for a choice game. But, you know, if it doesn't get played, okay, and if it does get played, it will probably get played once, and then you put it away and then you're good for a little bit. But that being said, the fact that it does do what it says on the box does deserve some credit, because it will be done in 30 minutes. Great, it's a filler-length game. It is reasonably well produced. I mean, okay, the tile artwork is not particularly stellar, but, you know, these wooden little pieces for the houses and the cards and the screens are pretty good quality, you know, they're sturdy enough, you've got enough room to do what you want behind it, and I like the fact that in pictorial form, the game is clearly explained by these screens, including how the gems score at the end, so you can keep track of that aspect. It says 2 to 5 players. This is best played as a 3 to 5 player game. I don't really think 2 is the way to do this, because you're basically just taking tiles from each other, and I think there's just far better 2-player games for fillers. I mean, play something like Seven Wonders Duel or Splendor Duel or something like that, Tokaido Duo or something. You know, play something like that for 2 players. It's not really, this isn't the game for you. But 3 to 5, even 5 players, because it's simultaneous. Yes, you're only as fast as your lowest common denominator, but even a 5-player game goes at a reasonable pace. The only downside is that I only care about this person and this person, so the other 2 players over there, I have no interaction with whatsoever. That's kind of the nature of the beast, but at least this game does cater for 5. And 5-player games, particularly fillers, are not the most common thing to get right, and so this one at least does that. Though you can get some imbalance with players, particularly if you've got new players with gamers, because the gamers will understand how to split their tiles in a better way than the new players will. So you don't have to worry necessarily about anybody cheating, but you can think that, well, if that person is sitting in between 2 brand new gamers, then suddenly they've got an advantage because the decisions and the splits that those other players make probably aren't going to be the best ones. So they might be pretty much getting away with murder and just getting a load of stuff out that's really good. There is that, but it's a slight filler game, and it's meant to be for new and light gamers. So what exactly are you expecting here? So even though Rome in a Day is not particularly innovative or groundbreaking, it has a set amount of criteria that it's trying to achieve, and it achieves pretty much them all across the board. Yes, I don't particularly recommend it with 2 players, but 3 to 5 does the job. Less than 30 minutes, quick, snappy, easy to teach, easy for the memory jogger, decent enough components, you know, not stellar, you know, the tiles are probably the weak link here, but the house pieces are pretty cool, and it just does what it needs to do. And there's not a huge amount of these decent I split you choose games out there, so at least it's not just simply going, oh, here's another drafting game, here's another polyomino game. This at least is taking a mechanic that's probably more seldom used than other ones are, and doing something nice and simple with it. I'm giving it overall a 7 out of 10. It's not one that I'm going to bring to every game night, but I do think it's decent. I do think it does exactly what it sets out to do and what it says on the box. Not the best with 2 players, but I'll put it in my game bag every now and again, especially if I've got that dreaded number of 5 players, because I think it suits 5 players just fine. Yes, you don't interact with 2 of the other players, but given that the game is barely 20 to 30 minutes long, it's not that big of a deal, really. But it will do very nicely for light gamers, and even though brand new gamers might struggle a little bit with the mechanic at first, they'll quickly pick it up, and then if you want to, just play the game again and they know what they're doing at that point. Does what it says on the tin, nothing particularly new, nothing particularly innovative, but it does the job, ticks the boxes, and it's definitely worth a look. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube, but also thumb it up on Board Game Geek when I put the video on there. Let's get it into the hot review sections. Pretty please, that would make the world to me. But also, if you want to check out more content on the show, I've recently done a top 10 list on nature-themed games for World Earth Day. So take care, and remember as always, regardless of how you're going to split your piles, it's still only a game. Bye for now, everyone.